Welcome back, everybody. It's your homeboy, Justin Wallace, a.k.a. The Juice, along with my homeboy, Josh, a.k.a. Bruiser Bodie, and some guy who produces the show on occasion, says some really dumb shit named Sretton. He's here, too. But welcome back, everybody. It's another brand new, fantastic edition of the JPDUB podcast. It's episode 9, in fact, and it's entitled Wuvable Oaf. With us today is a very special guest. He is a published artist. He has had his work in magazines like Heavy Metal, comic books such as Image Comics, IDW. He's also done some shit for Henry and Glenn Forever, which is, you know, the punk rock in me loves that shit. I love those two boys. They're solid like a rock, yeah. And he's also done some shit for Decibel Magazine and is continuing to do so. We're going to find out a hell of a lot more about that. And he's also the creator of his own cult comic phenomena called the Wuvable Oaf. His name is Ed Luce. Ed Luce, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Like I said, you have the best voice. I know a lot of people, I pick my bands by voice alone. Like a lot of people can kind of look through that, but I knew I was going to like your band just based on your voice, period.
I appreciate that, man. So how the fuck are you doing tonight, man? What's going on in your world?
I'm doing good. You know, I just kind of got through with my work week. I'm an art professor. I teach at a comics MFA program. So having to do this long distance, it kind of takes the form of mentorship meetings with my grads. But otherwise, I'm ready to get drawing. This is kind of my beginning of my drawing work week.
Hell yeah. So what kind of, you're doing some teaching. You said, what school are you teaching at out there? And you're out in San Francisco area, right?
Yeah. Currently I'm in Sacramento, but I have the luxury of being able to teach across the internet, and we have more space out here in Sacramento. But yeah, San Francisco, California College of the Arts is the school.
Awesome. Did you go to school for art? See, I was a big art dude, like growing up, but I always hated the fact that unless you're going to go for like fine art, and the art teacher, like, don't fucking tell me what to do, you know? Like, I don't want to draw this pair. I want to draw some fucking buff dudes with swords. Like,
yeah, I did actually. My parents wanted me to go to be a children's book author, so I fell pretty far outside of that with what I'm doing now. But I actually went to grad school. I went to grad school for painting, installation, and performance, which I think some of the stuff that I do at comic conventions is kind of related to that. But then I moved to San Francisco and just, got back into comics, met a bunch of comic creators. And then comic programs are starting to pop up all over the country. So I got in on the ground floor of CCA's comics MFA program.
I mean, when you were a little kid, is this something that you saw yourself doing? What were some of your favorite books?
Yeah, I mean, my parents kind of put comics in my hands, I think, like most kids, when you're at the grocery store, at least when you were, I'm long in the teeth. So at my age, they were like, under $1. My parents would just stick them in my hands to keep me busy. But They also really supported me drawing. My dad wanted to be an artist, but his parents didn't want to support him in that. So they kept a pencil in my hands and I just kept drawing. We were talking about before we went live, I started drawing the Smurfs. I grew up in the 80s in the age of cartoons that sold toys. So I drew He-Man, I drew G.I. Joe, got into the X-Men, Marvel comics at, I would say a little bit later in life. Because when I hit puberty, I didn't get into girls. I instead got into comics. And that was my way to kind of fit in with everybody. I drew my own comic when I was a teenager, but then kind of put it away because, as you said, like back then you didn't go to school to draw comics. So I went for illustration, and that kind of gave me all the tools I needed to be a comic book artist. But I knew I wasn't gonna be able to make a living on being illustration because, like you said, I don't like to draw what people tell me to. Tried to be a fine artist, tried to be a painter for a while.
Right.
That didn't work. My personality did not jive with the sort of more fine arts gallery and museum kind of scene. When I moved to San Francisco, it's been like 15 years ago now. That's when I started to do the Wuvable Oaf comic, and then kind of all the other stuff came after that, the Henry and Glenn stuff and Heavy Metal. Decibel, came knocking not long after that.
So Decibel hit you up. They seen your shit and they're like, "Hey, we got to have this."
But Decibel, and I got to mention Tom Neely. Anytime we mention Henry and Glenn Forever, we got to mention Tom Neely, who was kind of the main guy of, there was this art collective in LA called Igloo Tornado. And they were the ones that did the first Henry and Glenn Forever books. I'm actually, I guess, part of the Henry and Glenn Forever and Ever sort of leg of things. And that's when Tom kind of more took it over. But yeah, I mean, Decibel did a whole feature on comic book artists. So it was like me, Tom, Johnny Ryan, I think Skinner may have been in it. And that was kind of my introduction to those guys.
That's awesome. I can't remember which. They were always so hard to come by, those books, the Henry and Glenn books, unless like me get them on eBay and shit. And some of them now like are going pretty decent amount for a poor motherfucker like me. You know, pimping ain't easy.
Yes, it is.
All right, you know, for a handsome gentleman like Bodie.
Yes,
I can't remember what book it is though. It's like really fucking small though. It's like the only one I got in the Henry and Glenn series. My drummer Brad told me about that shit back in the day, and I was just like, dude, the concept's great. So when I found out that you did some art for that, I was like, dude, this is fucking awesome.
I'm a teacher, so
That's
I have
so killer
visual aids here. Yes. But yeah, I've been a huge Henry Rollins fan. I think I was into Henry Rollins before I was into Black Flag because he did all of those spoken word records.
Yes.
And
that's so great.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah. I was right at that age, like 14, 15, where he's like talking directly to me. And Black Flag was too much for me. It wasn't so into the Rollins band, but I kind of fantasize about him. He seemed like a cool, dude that I would want to hang out with. So when I found out this exists, I was like, you got to let me do something, Tom. I may have a unique insight into this. And of course, who doesn't love to draw Danzig? Who doesn't love to make fun of Danzig?
Good point. Have you ever met any of those dudes?
I haven't directly met Danzig. He does comic shows, and especially when I was selling this print around at conventions, people would buy it, and then they would go over to his booth, and they would ask him to sign it. And I would be like, okay, first thing, don't tell him I'm here, but you could go and sign it, have him sign it, and then come back and tell me what happened. And pretty much every single time, they would bring the print up, and he would look at it and be like, "Is this that gay thing?" He'd be like, no, man, I'm not going to sign it. Henry Rollins will sign it. And he says he hasn't opened it and looked at it, but he's like, yeah, I'll sign anything. Just give it to me. So no direct contact. But I did go to a show, a comics show, and kind of creep around the side to look at him in his booth just in case shit went down. I'm not, Danny Marianino. That guy, I couldn't take him probably, but I just kind of wanted to see if he was as small and potentially intimidating if shit went down, if I had to handle shit.
Danzig, motherfucker. Love the guy, but real dick from what I hear.
Yeah, I hear that a lot about the guy. Too bad, too. A lot of people look up to him. So.
Oh, well, whatever. He's made a lot of really good music, so I guess.
Has he? He's a musician? I didn't know that.
A little twist.
He's a great director right here.
Taking the cheap shots. His name's Ed Luce, Glenn. You can find him at 555.
I just said he was a great director. I actually do want to see that. True. I want to see that Western. I do want to see that Western because I saw the unrated trailer where the girl just gets him out right away on the horse. She got the girls out right away. I was like, okay.
It's pretty blunt, Danzig's all about like the big titties and like the old Frank, what's his name? The old artist like Frazetta, shit like that. Like he's all about that stuff. So he wants it to come to life, and he doesn't really have to have backstory for it. So it's just fucking there, man. I'm gonna.
Well, like his last, couple albums, like no filter, no outside voice whatsoever. It's, editorial voice. So, I mean, it's interesting to get the pure Danzig vision, whether it's a record or a film. Definitely.
What's your favorite Danzig album?
Yeah, it would be a Misfits album. Kind of. Does that count?
I mean, yeah, but we're talking just strictly Danzig catalog right now.
Oh man, see, Danzig is kind of like the Cure for me. It's
really
like a singles band for me. Like I'm not into any single Cure album, but I do like Danzig songs. I mean,
Pornography is great though. I do love that album front to back, dude.
Yeah, I have a Mixed Up was my first like Cure album, which isn't really a Cure album, but it's probably the only one that I like all the way through. But yeah, I mean the first one, but Walk Among Us was my first Misfits.
Go! Fucking Nike a Go Go is like my favorite song.
Hell yeah, yeah. And it's got Brains for Dinner, Brains for Lunch, Brains for Breakfast, and for Lunch, which there's a video for.
I just saw that. Well, it's been out, but it hasn't really been out. I remember seeing it somewhere on YouTube like years ago. And then who was it? Like Metal Injection or somebody was tweeting about it. Like Brain Eaters, Misfits actually do with Glenn Danzig have a music video, and it's real perfect. Campy, real cheesy. It's great. Dude.
It's fucking perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone should have made them more happy back in the day, so we could have had more visual shit.
I swear you would have said Lucifuge would have been your favorite album.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But no, I don't know. Misfits definitely all day long. Sam Hain a little bit. Like somebody bought me the box set years ago. It didn't really
Sam Hain. Yeah.
I mean, Human Pony Girl. That's kind of an interesting song. But Danzig was the first one, just because it's got all the classics.
Oh yeah,
in it.
Yeah, and it's fucking Rick Rubin probably at his best, as a producer.
In the late '80s, Rick Rubin was everywhere, man. He was the best producer there was.
Yeah, and then shit happened. I don't know what happened, Fuck yeah. So as we're cycling in a little bit of music talk right now, we're going to come back to the art and all that because, hey, we got some time. And these motherfuckers got to sit and listen anyway. They already paid for it. Just joking. This shit's free. We don't give it. Come on. You're a fucking huge metal fan, which is one thing that really attracted. Now, to let everybody know kind of like how I became aware of you, shout out to Devin Swank from Sanguisugabogg. We just had him on the last episode. If you haven't watched that on YouTube or downloaded on any podcasting platform yet, fucking go do it. It's great. It's a good time. I saw that drawing you did with Devin and Cameron in the fucking the monster dicks from the Menstrual Envy video, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
dude. And I was like, this is fucking insane. And at the time, I'm not aware this dude's fucking professional artist. It's just like they're like, fan art, and I don't know, for some reason, fan art in my head, I think it's gonna be some like stick figure, like all stupid, like
watercoloring
art. And I'm like blown away, like, dude, you guys just had this badass artist do some shit for you. So, I went through it, I hit you up, we talked, and I'm like, got to see what you were really into. And one thing that also really struck me was you did a book signing for one of your books, dressed up as another previous guest, episode 3 guest, Afner from Midnight.
Yeah.
Dude, tell me a little bit about that situation and like how that came about. I mean, obviously you're a fan, but
yeah, but you know what? I mean, like anything, I've been doing comics for 10 years or something like that at that point. It gets boring, like doing conventions. I do tons and tons of conventions, had to do a book tour for the signing. And I just thought, how can I make this interesting? Also, how can I get people to turn out? So in some of those pictures, you'll notice there's a guy in a goat's head mask, which is my Goat Blood character, shirtless. I decided to go shirtless, wear the bullet belt, wear the mask on my face. Also, I hate taking pictures, and it's just like at every show, tons and tons of pictures. It's exhausting, and you always have to make like the same face. Or I learned how to like show a little bit of teeth.
I hate showing teeth.
Yeah, have like a little bit of a fake smile. So this time around, I was like, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to drink through the mask. I'm going to just be as metal as possible and kind of try to freak people out. And I was obsessed with Midnight. It kind of in the way that I'm obsessed with Sanguisugabogg right now. But yeah, I just said I'm going to go for it. Yeah.
How'd you discover Midnight? Me and Bodie played a fest, Full Terror Assault, a couple years back. Bodie's does vocals for Sexual Atrocities and do the handsome prick thing. We were up on I've told this story before, but Midnight was playing. Me and my girlfriend were up on stage, and it was fucking awesome. We're sitting right there, or standing right there, I should say. My buddy's like, Johnny B, I'm talking about, fucking Bodie, Johnny B,
Sleazy B.
He's like, dude, you want to do some acid? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, come with me. We go back in this trailer. I take a fucking hit of acid, and we go up and just start watching the show. And I'm like, dude, yeah, this is badass. And then they all tried to like bang my girl, so that wasn't really too cool. But I said no.
Would you like a fish sandwich?
Yeah, right. They're like, I was like, hey man, you know,
That's not cool.
I do a handsome prick and I do this. They're like, they give a fuck. They're like, hey, I smell panocha.
Yeah. Who's the chick?
Yeah.
Beat it, kid. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yakety schmackety. We know, Taz. Shut the fuck
Hey,
up.
pupils, beat it. I got somebody to talk to over here.
But dude, Midnight's one of those bands that I got turned on to. I think what was the second album? God damn it. Why is it escaping?
Yeah, I'm terrible with names. I know there's like the blue one,
The one where the chicks are scissoring each other on the front.
Scissoring timbers.
Yeah.
That's like one of the recent
You know what I'm
ones,
saying?
right?
It came out like
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that just dropped on Metal Blade. It's the one right before that.
Before it. Okay.
So I guess it would be like their third album. They got like 3 or 4. Dude,
Satanic
got a lot
Royalty?
of fucking. No, that's a blue cover.
No,
Satanic
no.
Royalty is awesome, dude.
That's an awesome. I was gonna say
It's like
that's one of
Venom
my
and
favorite.
Motorhead fucked, and then you had like this amalgam crazy demon seed that's fucking Midnight.
I like what you put that. You got away with words.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But dude, you're a big metalhead. That's my point. What's some of your favorite shit in metal? And I also think it's cool that like you do shit like that at a book signing. And it's much like we like to do. We also do the wrestling podcast, and we're gonna get into some wrestling talk. Don't think that you motherfuckers are getting out, you know, with no wrestling talk this week, you know, because you're sadly mistaken. But you combined all this shit into your own world, you know, like you were saying, doing these conventions can be, you know, a bore and tedious, and plus, you know, some of the people there that you encounter are just like, whoa, like woof. You bring your own world into this, and that's what's cool. Is it's more crossover nowadays. Like what we try to do, we try to just be real. I mean, we are, you know, who we are, but bring our other shit like the metal into the wrestling talk. You know, you got a lot of shows and shit out there that people talk about wrestling, but how come there ain't no grindcore death metal dudes doing it? You know, it's like, fuck it, let's hit the button. You know, same thing and with comics and pop culture and movies and all this shit. But I really like that you kind of cross that over when, you know, you're doing the book signing and the metal and all that shit and bringing it to people that in turn also helps these bands, which I truly, really appreciate. You know, when you're doing a fucking badass piece of art and for a band like Sanguisugabogg, who's blowing up already, but you know, you get that help from like a fan that's obviously passionate and people follow your shit. You have your own following. And you're like, oh, this dude likes that. Ed likes this. Why can't I check it out? You know, I'm going to tell you right now, brother, I really love and appreciate that about you and the crossover and everything. So cheers.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of the things that really drew me to Sanguisugabogg was like they're the nexus of all of these things. I'm taking a little break from doing my own Wuvable Oaf comics to just kind of celebrate some of the things I love. And they were like at the top of that list because, yeah, they're different. They're super into merch, which I know is something that people have tried to crucify them for. But in my experience with comics, I've actually taken a lot of influence from bands just because since music has been kind of
shit, right?
Yeah.
Of the Oaf, I've seen those. God damn, I want this shit.
Yeah. Since music is like kind of getting devalued or has been devalued for years, it's not how bands make their money anymore. It's kind of the same thing with comics, especially when you get a publisher and they release your book. You make a royalty, they make the bulk of the money. So I had to get into merch, like shirts, the figures you're talking about. I released a couple records because there's a band in the comic. So yeah, I just love bands that really jump into that kind of bundle thing and that merch things. And you know what? If you don't like it, don't fucking buy it. Okay, like just shut up. That's how you make money. Hate. Yeah, but no, I do. I kind of also in comics, you got to distinguish yourself, right? And I think Sanguisugabogg, again, I'm going to sound like a rep for them, like a PR rep for them before this is over.
All right,
but they. And I completely lost my train of thought with that. You gotta kind of distinguish yourself in some way in the comics world. Same thing as in bands and with music. And I just said, well, okay. I looked at because I kind of came up in more of like the gay LGBTQ comics community. I was like, how am I gonna rise to the top of this? How am I gonna distinguish myself from that? And I just kind of brought all the things that I grew up loving, which didn't happen to be too prevalent in that world.
But that's awesome that you were making them because, and that's, for anybody that has this stigma about that community, it can wipe all that bullshit aside, because it's just your fucking normal dude that's like in the fucking metal and all this cool shit we're about to talk about. Who gives a fuck what your orientation or perceptions of pleasure are. Who fucking cares?
Yeah. At the same time, I know there's a lot of guys out there like me who are really lonely, and believe me, it's kind of really lonely to be like me and be super into death metal. None of my friends, none of my
That's what I was saying. I'm like, damn, I'm surprised. Like, yeah, but you like death metal? Fuck off, guy.
Yeah, I've worn Slayer shirts in gay bars and had people come up to me and be like, is that ironic? Are you being ironic? It's like, no. Why does it have to be like that? So
yeah.
Yeah, I thought, okay, let me put this into the comic and see who comes out of the the closet, so to speak, literally. But it ended up bringing all these straight metal dudes into enjoying my comic, because they were like, oh, okay, like I can get into this guy. I kind of look like this guy. Wuvable Oaf is a type. It's not necessarily like a single character. It is, but it's also a type of guy. And I always say, like, everybody has a Wuvable Oaf in their life. You might be that Wuvable Oaf. So a lot of metal folks started to show up at my booth, to the extent where I started to do comics that had certain tie-ins and cameos from metal public figures.
That's sick as hell.
Yeah, so people, metal collectors would come up and be like, oh, I hear you've got like the Kerry King comic over here. What's this about? And it's basically my character stalking Kerry King through LA, trying to give him a demo. So I try to, work some of that, all of my loves
Real
into
life.
Yeah, wrestling. Obviously my character looks like a wrestler, so I gave him a backstory where he's was a satanic themed pro wrestler in the '90s. So yeah, I tried to just use all of that, the stuff I love, to kind of distinguish myself from everybody else.
Fuck yeah. And that's great. And I feel like the best time is now, last several years. Just the way social media is and the way you're able to create, you have access to anything. You want to have something made merch wise, t-shirt wise, and obviously you have connections, but it's so much easier. It's point and click really anymore to do shit. Imagine like in the 90s, if we had shit like this, and if I had access to all the things I love as far as pop culture and horror and metal and all that shit goes, it would blow your mind as a child what we do now. And especially it's so ready available to utilize as a person trying to make something of themselves, like you proven track record, killer artist. Now you have all these different, potential revenue streams and shit that you already got it down, brother. You're like, I'm putting out albums, I'm putting out action figures, I'm putting out t-shirts, I'm putting out comics. Fuck you, three dorks. I'm doing it.
Yeah, no kidding.
But like you're saying, it's what you're saying is absolutely true. Like you can celebrate your what you love very publicly, and that brings people to you. Like, I didn't know how to make figures. But Eric Erspamer, who's a Phoenix-based sculptor, he was the one that said, oh, I've taught myself how to do this. Do you want to collaborate? My screen printer is in a bunch of bands. Brian Stern, Bat Skull Printing in Oakland. He recorded some of the music for the records that I've released. So I'm a big fan of bringing people in to kind of fill in the gaps of what you can't do yourself.
Right. And that's awesome. And that's just being creative collectively. And that's, what we try to do and what we try to aim for. So fuck yeah on that, man. What's some other type of metal bands? Like what's your backstory on metal? Have you always been like a metalhead since you were a kid? You in any punk rock as well? Or other than Misfits?
Do you like Dave Matthews Band?
Shut up.
I knew it was coming.
Dave Matthews Band.
I knew it.
In one of those early podcasts, I was like kind of shocked that you confessed that, which is cool. That's awesome. No, actually, I did not get into Dave Matthews Band, but my entry point into metal was Guns N' Roses.
Nice.
They pissed my parents off when I put all of the pictures
Appetite.
from all of the Metal Circus and what else?
Dude, I still got some of those.
Yeah. I put that up.
Metal Hammer.
This may be controversial and unpopular opinion, but then I got into Hysteria. Def Leppard was one of my other go-to bands. I'm trying to think of who else.
Nice.
Yeah, all that, late 80s.
Nothing wrong with Def Leppard. I don't care what anyone says.
Hysteria is like the every breath you take of hair metal, in my opinion. It's true. It's perfect like that. It's perfect. I stopped just short of hair metal. Like I got into Motley Crue. Dr. Feelgood was my Motley Crue album. I'm trying to think of what else. And then grunge kind of came along, and that was like a go-to thing. I got super.
What were some of your favorite grunge bands, man?
Still to this day, I'll listen to Nevermind, and I'll be like, that was pretty fucking. I learned a lot about myself in that record. I think most of my generation did. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, I was at that point not digging too deep, so I was into Super Unknown. That sounded
Soundgarden.
Yeah, I love Soundgarden.
R.I.P. One of the greatest things to ever happen. Just period.
One of the greatest musicians, writers.
Yeah.
God, voice. He had the fucking Jesus pipes, dude.
His voice, dude.
God.
No, I don't care what anyone says too. Like Soundgarden and Chris Cornell, everything he's written, dude. That song he did for the Avengers movie was the shit.
Oh, Live to Rise.
Yeah, dude. I
I
don't
don't
care
know
what
that
says.
song. I got to check that out.
Oh my god, dude.
But around that time too,
I don't know why.
Industrial came along, and I got
Yeah.
super into Industrial. I love
With
Ministry.
Skinny Puppy and shit.
Skinny Puppy unlocked a lot of like the death metal bands for me that I listen to today, because they
Really?
unconventional song structures and
Yeah.
they, tempo changes and all of that. Before I thought I was I'm always attuned to the pelvic thrust factor in music.
Yes, dude. Moist Disciples lyrics. Trust your pelvis. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I was super into like Thrill Kill Cult and Ministry.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who else.
What was the other one? There was like one. There like some kind of machine gun.
Oh, Sister Machine Gun.
Machine Gun. Yeah. There's all kinds of shit back in the day. And fucking Glenn saw that was coming. That's why Black Acid Devil happened. I can't get down with that record. I really can't.
I can't either. No. That's why I was struggling. We were like, which Danzig album? Like, well, it's not that one. That's pretty true.
Yeah. But dude, like early like Nine Inch Nails shit, like.
And did you get into KMFDM too?
Oh yeah, I at a certain point they were the band I had seen the most. I saw them with Ogre when he did that record with Ogre, yeah. Which was Skinny Puppy was gone at that point. I know they're back now, but haven't seen him since what was his name? Dwayne Cottell, the one programmer died, and they broke up for like the first time. But yeah, I was super into KMFDM. I saw them with like Life of Agony and Agent Orange and all
Agent Orange
Life of
fucking
Agony.
rules.
Agent Orange, thank you.
Here's a little good sneak peek
Good
for you.
call.
We got our covers, Handsome Prick, next batch of covers. It's Agent Orange song.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But I was super into industrial for a while. I kind of went back and forth for years, and then electronica happened, and I was like, oh, okay, like let me get into this for a little while. Got super into trip hop, and then kind of rode that out until I didn't get into. I'm suddenly giving you like a music history. Like,
good. I just do it. That's what we're all about.
Sort of skipped the ska revival, and then I went to grad school in San Diego, and my roommate was like, have you listened to the Slayer album lately? And I hadn't heard Rain and Blood in a long time, or South of Heaven ever. I wasn't ready for it, but that kind of kicked off my modern interest in metal again.
Oh, sorry. When I just hear South of Heaven, it just reminds me of the riff, dude. Dude. Yes, dude. It reminds me of
favorite.
It reminds me of Hell Awaits too. That opening riff, that I'm like, oh my god.
What's your favorite Slayer album, Ed?
Yep.
I kind of like Seasons in the Abyss. That's like the greatest hits.
It's the most well-rounded.
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's a greatest hits without being a greatest hits. They kind of revisit all their old sound, and they kind of fuse the slow with the fast again. But South of Heaven is pretty awesome.
A lot of groove.
You can't beat that song.
Here's another thing. I know they're like, you want to call them like they're part of the big thrash thing, right? Back in the 80s, like Slayer were like the ones. But I'd never thought of them until, and I've listened to Slayer now for fucking 20 plus years, but I've never thought of them really as a thrash band until lately, because I was always like, man, dude, that's death metal. I'm sorry. People could say the same thing about actually the band Death. That's, what's your typical, maybe Slayer had a little bit cleaner vocals, but still that it was insanity, and it was all the ideals that they were bringing out, like the Satanism, the brutality, the dark side of life and war and all this shit they're writing about. Like, that's fucking death metal, dude. What's your thoughts on that? What would you consider them?
Yeah, well, I listen to a lot of younger YouTubers who do death metal shows. Like, trying to think, I won't name names, but a lot of them won't listen to thrash. They just think thrash is boring.
It's stupid.
Yeah,
like Frank Zappa said, dude, if you can't, you got to remain open-minded, or you're gonna.
Yeah, they think it's boring. They think it's like it's too riffy or something for them, or it doesn't change things up enough. But
does not compute.
Yeah, exactly what you say is true about Slayer. I think I can go back to them because they do have a lot of what I think went on to influence a lot of those bands. And it's so heavy. Yeah.
Here's something else that, and I've said this a million times to some of my close buddies. To me, like Slayer is the band in modern metal, like within our lifetime of metal, the past like 40 years. That is, Black Sabbath is number one, right? Tony Iommi's the fucking Lord of the Riff. I love Tony Iommi. I have my two favorite guitar players ever are Frank Zappa and Iommi.
I was gonna say Iommi and Randy Rhoads.
There you go. Slayer to me they are the next level, like Black Sabbath status when it comes to riffs, okay, and the metal riff, because you think back to all the iconic Black Sabbath songs, your Iron Man's, Paranoids, Hand of Doom, it all, my fucking personal favorite, Into the Void, but then listen to Slayer's catalog, the iconic riffs of like Rain and Blood and shit. It doesn't get much more like iconic in metal than that. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, they were like the second wave of Black Sabbath, but being a completely different band,
Yeah, they get grindy too, in some places in Rain and Blood, like where it's just a blur. I know that there are other bands doing it more proper at that point, but yeah, I do feel like they expanded my palette for like the heavier stuff. I wouldn't be into Dying Fetus if I didn't get through Slayer first. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Play with Fetus a couple of times, man.
No. Yeah, Slayer does have a couple of those riffs where if you took somebody that wasn't really into metal, they'd be able to pick out like
one of them, dude.
Yeah, they'd be able to pick out like Metallica riffs, like Master Puppets or Fade to Black. And I know like a couple of buddies that I have that are like that. They can pick out Rain and Blood. They'll be like, "Oh, that's Slayer," and they don't listen to Slayer much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, Slayer's
iconic
up there
riffs,
with like
dude.
Iconic riffs. Yeah,
The band,
iconic grooves and hooks.
I'd say even more so than Metallica. I mean, dude, Metallica wanted to be Slayer.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, Slayer was playing fast.
Just got schooled. The more you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Hell yeah, it's some G.I. Joe shit. What about grindcore or anything? I mean, you're into the death stuff. You have any favorite like grindcore bands?
Yeah, I don't even know if they're considered grind, but they did unlock that to me a little bit because, I was like a thrash guy and then a death metal guy into the classic kind of death metal. That got monochromatic after a while. Nails kind of opened up some of these bands for me. Yeah. Again, I know they kind of span genres and they get a little monochromatic at times too, but I was like, okay, I can follow this. This was like the first band where that tempo and that level of brutality and just the speed. I was like, okay, let me check out like Spaz. They kind of opened me up to Spaz. Napalm Death had been familiar with them, but I kind of need that groove factor a little bit. Like I love the new Napalm Death. Yeah, I love the new Napalm Death record because it's almost
oh my god, yes.
In some spots, which I know
I love Napalm.
Yeah, I know a lot of their older fans may not like the new one, but it sounds like Killing Joke in some spots.
I like Killing Joke too.
Nice call. I do too.
Dude. I was a fucking young ass kid, but I would have like on my folder. It was so weird as a kid. It'd be like
Millennium,
Nirvana, Black Flag, Killing Joke, fucking Slayer, Cannibal Corpse.
Definitely love Pig Destroyer though, and again, there's another band like the latest record isn't like, Prowler in the Yard, but
right.
The latest record kind of, we won't talk about that, but it wasn't bad. It's not bad. I'm not being a complete dick, but it's, like you said, Prowler and even Book Burner, I thought was great, dude. The one before that. And they did a whole like companion CD of punk covers. So everybody should check that shit out. Dude, one cool thing about Pig Destroyer, we have a badass brewery in Northwest Indiana where me and Sredden are at. Bodie's up in Wisconsin, which they have.
Wisconsin.
They're based on beer. The whole discovery of the fucking town was based on, hops and fucking brutality. We have Floyd's, and they do some of the best like metal collab beers. They had one with Cannibal Corpse, Pig Destroyer. They have two. I got one in the fridge still. It's a double IPA. It's called Permanent Funeral. Dude, it's a fucking ass kicker. It's
nice. A couple of my buddies played in Pig Destroyer. Adam and John Jarvis. Shout out to them, man.
Yes. Fuck yeah. Dude, they play in like a million bands.
They're playing every band, man. They've been Scour. John plays in Scour with Phil. Adams and Misery Index. He's been
Misery Index?
Calorie Cat.
Misery Index. That was the one I couldn't remember the name.
Misery
I like
Index
that last
kicks
record.
so much ass.
That was a
Dude, that last record was fucking insane, dude. I could talk forever about Misery Index.
Yeah.
I
great.
feel like you would.
I remember when
I'm
they
sorry.
broke off from Dying Fetus, dude, like Overthrow came out, the
Yes.
EP. And that was back dude when Sparky, he was a big fan, like back when we were in Decrypt and shit and doing like Maryland Death Fest, fucking like Sparky and Netherton, them dudes were like, you know, asking, like Brad was there, they'd ask about different members of the band and shit. It was like crazy, like to have like friends like that. I used to talk to Sparky all the time, like AOL Messenger and John Merriman from Cephalic Carnage back in the day. And when they broke off from Dying Fetus, because I don't remember the story of Gallagher fired them guys or what the fuck happened, because I was just jocking that shit the other night, dude, you know, getting down on some Fetus. So you guys go on Instagram, see the dumb video of me with my girlfriend, you know, fucking stupid as shit. But that it was, you talk about groove and metal, no band reaches the brutality and groove and really ties together the thrash with the slam, with the technical death metal, all that shit in the one package as completely as Dying Fetus. And that lineup in particular of Jason Netherton, you had Sparky, you had
Gallagher.
Gallagher, obviously he's the fucking, you know, the patriarch of the brand. And then
And
with the fucking drummer, Kevin Talley.
Tally, thank you.
Play with
That's
Slayer
right there.
also.
Yeah.
Slayer and dude, my buddy Ed played with Chimera, if you remember that band back in the day.
I remember Chimera. Yeah.
Tally did drums for them. But dude, God, they had such a killer sound with those guys. And then when it jumped to Misery Index, it was like, all right, like this is okay. It's Fetus really kind of Fetus without Gallagher, so it's still good. But once they branched off and did their own thing, I think by like, and maybe it's a little late, some people may disagree, but by like Killing Gods, dude, they were their own entity, you know, like that shit destroys. And they're fucking such a great band. And dude, Netherton's a good dude. He wrote that book. What the fuck was it called? I got it, man. I've only tore a little bit into it. And it's been out for several years now, but it's like, if you're a death metal fan and thrash fan and black metal and whatever, you gotta fucking look this up. This book is insane. It's like all the shit you would like to hear, like backstage stories and like history of, like he's got like a fucking college degree in writing and stuff. So he's just like, man, I've been playing the death metal scene for how many years, and I'm going to write this badass book, include all of your fucking death metal grindcore heroes, you know, like shit's absurd, man.
It's called Extremity Retained Notes from the Death Metal Underground.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Fuck
I have to check that out.
And that fast. But I like the combination of John Gallagher and I'm forgetting his first name, but Beasley is his last name. I know that. In Dying Fetus, because they
Simon
sing
Beasley?
along with their riffs. Yeah. They sing along with the riffs, which was like a complete revelation for me. Because normally, you know, it's just kind of growling over things, but they sing with the riffs.
Yeah.
That was something I hadn't
they
heard
sing
before.
like the slammer.
Dude, that's the best.
Yeah.
Dude, I love that. I'm like, yeah, that's so sick.
Yeah, he was my favorite death metal vocalist until Devin came along. Devin has that velvety death growl, especially on Dick Fillet, where it's just it's velvety.
It reminds me of a modern day Campbell Corpse Barnes era Tomb the Mutilated, like in modern day. Like, is this like,
I would say it's more polished.
Yeah, more polished, deep, filthy, fucking. Not that typical bullshit. Back in the day, dude, when we were doing all those shows like in Decrypt, we played so many of those bands. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna lump Devourment on there, and everybody's like, "Oh, Devourment!" Like, yeah, great, Baby Killer. I remember that shit. The T-shirt was brutal. You couldn't wear it anywhere. It was just like boring. His vocals aren't boring for that type of like slam, you know, super heavy death metal shit, you know. And he mixes so much. There's like mortician-y fucking sound and shit, dude. It's like. It's awesome, dude. It's off the hook, man. And
it's croony. He gets croony too, again, which is like not something that I've heard like in a voice like that before. So yeah, you can't beat John Gallagher's Register. When I play that for people who don't listen to death metal, you know, of course you get the Angry Muppets thing. But with Devin's voice, it's just different enough to where it kind of sticks out. So he's my current favorite anyway.
Wow, you hear that, Devin? I know you're going to be listening and watching this episode.
I am honored to be going after him, so thank you for having me go right after him.
Yeah, dude, it was my fucking pleasure.
Devin's a good dude.
I want to circle back into comic book talk real quick. Dude, you've done a lot of shit. Like, just for everybody watching and listening right now, give us I know I gave a shitty little intro at the beginning, but a rough spectrum of collectively what your art and where your art has been published and what you've been a part of, you know, because some of these people might be like, when I said earlier, like Image Comics. And when I saw it, I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah. I've done covers mainly for them, variant covers. Trying to think, Deadly Class. I did a variant for Redneck, which is about vampires in Texas. Yeah, I did a cover for that. I did a cover for Cena Grace's Burn the Orphanage. I'm trying to think of what else, like, you know, a couple of things. There was a time when I was getting ready to pitch the Wuvable Oaf book to a publisher that I was kind of talking to them and they were like, well, it's not what we do, but that's why we would do it, kind of a thing. So I feel lucky that I was able to get into Fantagraphics because they really respect the vision of the artist. They didn't have any editorial notes. They let me really release it, for better or worse, as my like kind of fully realized vision. I'm trying to think of what else. As I said, a lot of variant covers and things like that. Oh, heavy metal. I did a couple short stories in heavy metal, which, you know, once I kind of got off of Marvel and DC when I was a teenager, I started to pick up heavy metal. It didn't have quite the imagery that I was interested in. Let me put it that way. You know, as far as like the female form, let's say. But I definitely started to buy it because it was like, okay, this is more mature aesthetic and I can get into this. And of course, heavy metal, you know, it had that fantasy sci-fi kind of aesthetic that I was into. But Grant Morrison became a fan of the Oaf. I went to one of his signings. Shout out to Isotope Comics in San Francisco, James Syme, Kirsten Baldock. They said, Grant Morrison is coming to sign. They will love your book. You need to bring in copies of it. He goes by they, their, them pronouns now, so I want to make sure I get that right. They were there with their wife, and they freaked out. They said bears. Like, I won't even try and say it in their Scottish accents, but they just screamed bears simultaneously. So they got it immediately because that's kind of like the character. And when time came, when he took over as an editor for heavy metal, he asked me to do a story, which was awesome. Yeah.
Dude, that's fucking badass. So another previous guest of the show, George C. Romero, is kind of tied in with heavy metal right now, doing the, I think that's how he's bringing the official sequel of his father's franchise, Night of the Living Dead. There's going to be like in comic form coming from his mind. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that they're doing stuff like that. When I got the way I kind of got in, and believe me, a lot of my friends, a lot of my peers in the indie comics world were kind of like, how the fuck did you get into heavy metal? And what are you going to do in it? You know, like you do this, like, you know, music scene, San Francisco book. So I kind of just turned my characters into far-flung future sci-fi versions of themselves. And I kind of did my riff on Alien. My Oaf character kind of gets impregnated and he's got to give birth through his dick. So it was sort of like a little genital torture in it. Yeah, I wish I had a copy of it. I don't have it. The first version that I did of it, they kicked it back at me and they were like, no, we can't do that. It's way too explicit. Because basically he has an android kind of jerk him off. And then he spurts out 3 like little fetuses and they go into these aliens.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had to edit it down a little bit, but I think that they were looking to have not only indie cartoonists in there, but somebody who was gay, who was going to, fetishize
the demographic.
So change the demographic a little bit. So I did that. They asked me back to do a second one. So I did one about a living hair planet where everything is covered in sentient hair. That one was a little more toned down.
Sred, what are you talking about? You're European.
I don't hear your shit, but I got a hair thing. Like if I go to a barber shop and I look on the floor, I'll gag. I'll be like, oh no, I got to get out of here.
Love it.
I know what I am.
Yeah.
I know.
Do
That's
you?
kind of the thing. I think a lot of guys who are really hairy see my character and they understand it's like celebrating that. It's not,
Dude, I love it.
it's
And
a
that ties
positive
in.
body image. Yeah.
Yes, and it ties in perfectly to, and I've said this on Juice Pro Wrestling. Everybody go check it out right now and
Maybe.
subscribe. I love the old PWIs and wrestling magazines where it was like just like smoky filled pictures and big hairy ass dudes, man.
Right? Like Bruno Sammartino.
Yeah, dude. Fucking Big Scott Hall before he was
Big
fucking
Scott.
hey, yo,
Hey, yo.
like, had
Yeah.
the mustache and everything was just giant, hairy, and like
Right.
I
Dude,
love that shit. I love that.
that was a
style.
pretty mustache.
It's a manly thing, you know. It's
Totally.
yeah, it's fucking
Jim
awesome.
Neidhart. Jim
Jim
Neidhart.
Yeah.
the
Jim the Anvil.
Yeah.
The three main colors of the Oaf comic are white, black, and pink. And that's because of the Heart Foundation. I just totally
That's
jacked
awesome.
Dude,
So the
did we just
iconic shirt
segue
that I
real
put out-
hard into pro wrestling, brother? Because
Oh, yeah.
I think we did.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're talking about Jim the Anvil Neidhart, RIP, which I absolutely love. The Heart Foundation and him, even his ill-fated tag team with wait, that was Owen and Coco Beware, wasn't it? Back in the day, early 90s.
Yep.
But dude,
I know what you're talking about.
he was also who?
Yep. The Who.
Oh, ooh, yeah, that's right.
Who?
Yeah.
Who?
For a hot minute as punishment.
I know, right? Vince McMahon, we just cut an episode of him like sucking his ass, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Now is our opportunity to tear his ass apart. Press those cheeks together. Now we're going to spread him far apart. Yeah, it's a devastate his innermost being.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, so I had to be
Yes.
a wrestling fan.
Golden era,
over the
man. You had
years,
all the LJNs, didn't you?
yeah. No, I think only my brother had one. For whatever reason, I was more into Transformers and G.I. Joe.
There you go.
But you know, my relationship with wrestling kind of waxes and wanes since I'm writing a wrestling book now. I'm really into it hardcore. Yeah. I'm really into it kind of hardcore for the last 5 years to kind of get a feel for how to like write a book that has matches in it and learning the terminology and all of that. So I kind of checked out a little bit in the, I would say, late 90s when the aesthetic became more like MMA, UFC kind of looking guys. Like the characters kind of went away. And I think it was probably as the Attitude Era, you know, was kind of maybe crashing a little bit. I don't know. I liked Gold Dust. I'll admit that Gold Dust is problematic for a lot of gay people. They don't like the gay panic character, and of course he's gay, so they had a problem with that. But I was super into the gay
in
panic.
Danhausen, Gay-tanic Panic.
Yeah. I like that character. I like that he was kind of my avatar in those matches.
Nice.
Like,
Do you remember the Mania match with Piper he had in that fucking
the backlot brawl?
What was that, gold Cadillac or Caprice?
Yeah, the gold caddy.
Yeah.
Oh my
and when they
Hollywood
asked
backlot
him,
brawl.
when I'm trying to remember who asked him if he was gay, and he's like, "No, I'm not." And I thought that was like the biggest betrayal. So that was actually, I walked away from wrestling at that point. I can't remember who did that. I think it was like the king, one of the kings, one of the many kings.
Jerry Lawler.
Jerry Lawler, yeah, asked him, and he said no, and I was like, "Okay, I'm out. I'm done."
Done.
For a
Stand
handful
up
of
and leave.
years. And I was a huge Stone Cold fan too, and Goldberg fan.
Yes, Goldberg had the perfect wrestling body, dude. I'm
Totally,
sorry.
yeah. I just found the Playboy with China in it. I actually bought the Playboy with
Nice.
China in it.
I think I might still have that too.
Yeah, I was super
I
into
caught a
China.
kids to that once upon a time.
Yeah, you did.
But yeah, I mean, ever since I kind of got back into it for the purposes of writing, I've been following more of like the indie circuit, not just AEW, but
Hell yeah.
some of the more deep cut. I was pleasantly surprised to find NWA Power with the Power, I guess.
Yeah,
with
and
the three
Into
R's.
Yeah.
Fire and Dokken.
Yeah, Dokken, dude.
Dokken, yeah.
Into the fire.
Yeah,
Dude,
I
love
love
that
the
tune.
body type. We're talking body types. They have that love of the
old
jobber,
aesthetic.
like slobber knocker body type. I can't remember the guy's name. But yeah, I was like, okay, this is
Trevor
this is
Murdoch,
like-
dude.
Trevor
I was
Murdoch.
just gonna
that's
say
it.
that Trevor Murdoch.
Yeah,
I knew what you were talking about. It's the old
Yep.
school vibe, man. Then you had Jim Cornette
Yeah.
on there, and everybody got sensitive because he made a fried chicken joke or whatever.
In
You know,
Ethiopia.
Ethiopian. Yeah, it was dumb. Whatever.
He's made that joke before in way back in the back in the 90s.
I mean, Josephus. I had no experience with Josephus.
He was great, dude. I loved him. R.I.P. Man. This just happened a couple weeks ago. You know, like that was, all of a sudden, Joseph Hudson, aka the question mark. And when like I said, when I first got acquainted with you, and was like, man, you know, I'm gonna check this dude out, man. I want to get him on the show and talk some shit. And I saw you had that on there. I was like, fuck, he's in the wrestling too. It's like, I love this.
Perfect.
Guy. Perfect.
Yeah. Turned up Zicky Dice kind of hit the scene too right after I started watching that. And
Another good brother, man.
Yeah, I was charmed by the fact that he was a musician beforehand. And I mean, I don't know about some of the early stuff, but I was into that single. What the fuck is that symbol?
From his band Heart to Heart.
Not so much the older stuff. I didn't check that out as much, but he released that one where he's in the car and he's like fighting with himself. And I was like, this is a decent song. Like he's got like fucking chops. You know, he can sing. It's believable. He's worked his character into it. I mean, talk about kind of media, you know, kind of mixing everything up. He was his character in that.
Dude, I hit him up. I remember I was talking to him at like a couple months after we did the episode with him, and he was telling me how he went to like Dennis Rodman's birthday party one time, and I was like, I'm a huge fucking Dennis Rodman fan, so I'm just like, dude, you gotta of course I'm marking out, you gotta tell him about me, we're cool, right, buddy? Old pal. It's like, hey man, like just tell him what we do is fun, it's good. I would bust a nut over fucking Dennis Rodman coming on the show, you know. Like,
nice. Yeah, work that magic. Make that magic work. Andy Williams was another one. I wasn't the hugest Every Time I Die fan. I have like a bunch of their albums, you know, certainly respect them as musicians. But when he got he made it, like he was in AEW. I was like, okay, I gotta watch this. He sort of guaranteed that I would watch AEW. He
is a weird, not really weird story. There's a local promotion out where we're from in Crown Point, Indiana called Black Label Pro, and they did a show out in South Bend. And Butcher and Blade were booked for that. And I remember like pulling up with my girl, and I'm like, you know, how cool would it be if like we just pulled up and like there's dudes out in the parking lot? Because I'm an opportunist as far as like, dude, you guys here come on and be like, hey man, I do this show. And I hate doing it sometimes because I don't want to be that guy, but you have to. If you have a brand and something you're promoting, and if people like you yourself see through it and see that there's like, hey man, this dude's fucking dope. Let's hang out. Let's have a good conversation. They pulled right up next to us, dude. Andy did. And I was like, holy fuck, you know, like, this is fucking awesome. Like, hey man, like, dude, my name's Juice fucking Justin. I do this podcast. Check it out. And, it was so cool. It was a surreal moment, you know? And like, I'm not necessarily a fan of the band, you know, that's not necessarily my forte, and I'm not knocking that. So anybody that likes that, don't think wrong, because then you're wrong. It was so cool to see him. And then I met same show. I met fucking everybody's favorite wrestler nowadays, Joey Ryan. Oh
God.
Yeah.
It sucks to say, you know, he turns out to be like, I guess he's like this big piece of shit, you know, from the whole, I don't know if you were aware, Ed, that there's this big speaking out movement in wrestling, and a lot of people got canceled. And, you know, if that shit was all true, I mean, I can't fucking defend the guy, you know. I mean, he was cool. He was knowledgeable of us when I was like, hey, I do this. It's like, yeah, oh, you're that guy. You're you know, I see you in my fucking feed all the time. Like, you're damn straight. Motherfucker got to promote.
Yeah. I certainly like that end of wrestling. I know gets a lot of grief, but I kind of like the more performative comedy, like, you know, goofball wrestling too. I won't put Effie in that category, but certainly he goes in that direction sometimes.
Dude,
like
the Twinks, like, man, the
gimmick matches. Yeah.
The Twinks.
Effie's Big Gay Brunch, which he's doing again during Mania weekend. So everybody can go on Fight TV and check that out.
Please.
The last one I watched was The Ultimate Twink, and it was Marco's stunt when they did it in Indianapolis.
Wow.
And Marco's stunt came out as the last guy. I was like, yes, dude. He pulled out this big, I think it was a double-sided dildo or like a double-fisted dildo. And he's fucking, they were doing some crazy shit in these matches, dude. And I love Effie. Me and Thread seen him. I've said a million times about how I got to grab his bloody dick, you know, through the pants, though, after a death match with Nick Gage. I'm very proud of that.
That's
moment.
A good match.
Awesome. He's a handsome gentleman. I love everything he does, man, and he seems like a great dude. And he's a hard worker. He's also involved in the movie that's a pro wrestling movie that's coming out with RVD and Mecha Wolf, a bunch of other wrestlers like Victoria from back in the day.
Okay, I haven't heard of this.
Yeah, dude, you got a Juice Pro Wrestling episode. What was it? 148,
Okay.
147, and 148. I can't remember which number, but it's called. What is it? I think it's. I'm mixing up with the fucking Vince McMahon one. We did the Ballad of Vinnie.
Yeah,
Mac,
you are.
Last one. The Legend of Dirty Ron.
Yeah,
Check it out. It's on Google, man. There's actually a Indiegogo to help finish the movie because they got like half the movie done. And dude, he's got like Tommy Chong's gonna be in the movie, a bunch of other fucking dudes. It's like a stoner comedy wrestling thing, and these guys are like so like DIY, man. Like it's just really fucking cool.
Yeah, Effie's another one of those guys who also pulls in wrestlers from different, I guess for lack of a better term, identities. It's like he gets the gay wrestlers into the big gay wrestling, but he also pulls in up and coming straight wrestlers. I'm trying to think of who all I've seen on that show. He pulled in one called Manders, who's kind of like
Manders is awesome. Like he's
awesome.
Yeah, I know some deep cuts. I'm not like I don't
one
have
called Manders
knowledge.
rules, man.
Yeah, he's great. I'm trying to think of who else. The Ugly Ducklings. I'm kind of a fan of their whole dynamic, like Coach Mikey, and then the smaller guys.
I got a T-shirt of theirs. It's based on They Live, They Quack.
Nice.
I think it's called.
They quack. That I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, I kind of treat wrestling like a buffet. Like I graze upon the things that I enjoy, and I kind of cut out everything else. Which is why it's hard for me to watch WWE these days, because it's just like there's nothing that
it's bad.
Has that kind of freak factor. Factor anymore.
I feel like AEW brings that as far as the major televised wrestling goes. They try to bring that in. They're really, if people stop hating and kind of get out of themselves for a minute and think about it, like it's the most complete thing as a wrestling fan you would want that's available right now. And on top of that, you have brands like Impact and MLW and Ring of Honor, and New Japan. I mean, there's just like you said, the buffet.
So much.
Shout out to our homies in Two Heels in the Face podcast. That's like their tagline. Wrestling is a buffet.
Oh, really?
It's very cool. I mean, and they're right about that. There's so much out there, especially now for everybody. The circle back when we were talking earlier about, as an artist and with the way internet and social media has affected the way you can promote and brandify and all that, dude, it's been wonders for wrestling as well.
Oh yeah.
You don't have
not just tape trading anymore.
Yeah. You don't have to just be like, well, the worst thing. And I think it's just a few days or a week ago, it was the 20th anniversary of WWE buying out WCW. And I remember when that happened, I was just like, damn it, man. And
now what?
It got really bad. It got really, really bad. I was one of those guys. I never stopped watching, but I would zone out. I'd like do something else while Raw was on or whatever. It'd still be on, but you could only see Orton versus Cena a million times, before you're like, I can't see this anymore.
One time before. I think that's what happened to them. They were like, all right, we're going to buy WCW. ECW is going to go out of, it's going to go bankrupt. We'll buy them. Now what? They didn't really have a plan. They set up that terrible invasion angle, but it was like they jumped at the opportunity to buy this out, but they didn't have anything to go with it. It was just like, now what? Now what do we do? We got two companies. What do we do?
Yeah.
I'm curious what their new direction is. I mean, when a lot of people left to go to AEW, I mean, again, that was more reason for me to follow that. I was into the Revival. They didn't really do anything in WWE. As soon as they got an AEW, they made good on that FTR hashtag, which was pretty awesome. And they kind of just grew into what you knew they could do. Like, what were they do? They were doing in NXT. I mean, I just love it. Enjoy watching them from a pure kind of wrestling perspective.
Thank you.
The way that they tell the story. Separate from the gimmick factor, which is usually what brings me to the table.
Who would you say is like your top 5 favorite wrestlers, like from the past and now? If you had to if someone asshole like myself asked you a stupid question like that.
Well, Neidhart is always going to be at the top. He's like, the guy that got me into watching wrestling. He's influenced a lot of the aesthetic of the characters that I draw, for sure.
Yeah, I could see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly, I would say Cash Wheeler would be in there as well. So you're asking me to get into some superficial territory. There's the aesthetic, and then there's like the wrestling side of things. I'm trying to think of who else. I did like the question mark. Top 5 is real hard to come up with, like right off the top of my head. When he first hit the scene, everybody knew it was Josephus, and like that was hilarious. So that was kind of awesome. But again, like that kind of style of wrestler brought into the modern era, I just loved the hell out of that. I did like Chyna. I know that she didn't know how to wrestle at first, and she really kind of struggled. But aesthetically and like kind of the place that she held in wrestling, kind of a big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of who else. What's his name? He was in WCW. He was one of the Nikita Khrushchev.
Not Nikita Koloff.
Khrushchev. Nikita Koloff, yeah.
Dude, yeah.
Someone else.
The Goldberg before there was Goldberg, as far as like body type.
Pretty much.
He was tag partners with Crusher Khrushchev, which was AKA the Repo Man. And what was it? Was he Axe and Demolition or he was Smash? He was Smash, right?
He was Smash, yeah.
Trying to get it right.
Was that 5? I think that was 5.
Yeah, that was 5.
You could name as many as you want. That was just a fucking,
I was gonna say.
Except for Chyna.
It's sometimes hard to come up with the top 5, at least for me.
Yeah, but it's cool. I mean,
always
fucking love wrestling, and something else that you're passionate about is horror movies, man. Let's break into that real quick as we kind of wind down a little bit here. What's some of your favorite horror stuff, and have you ever done anything like art wise with anything that you love in horror? Have you ever like reached out or just like done, like, hey, I'm gonna do it just because I want to fucking draw the thing or whatever,
Yeah, actually, I just did a Psycho Gorman drawing.
Yes, that was awesome.
Yeah, in terms of just kind of like trying to celebrate things that are very much in the that DIY spirit, like that movie. It was an instant cult classic. I know some people have some issues, like it didn't go far enough or it's too goofy or whatever, but it's just kind of everything. And then that Hunky Boys line. Again, it kind of just tied everything together for me. I know they've already beaten that to death online. It's become like the hashtag that sort of drove the film. But I had to do that. That was like a foregone conclusion. I grew up on the slasher movies. My parents sort of forbid me to watch them, which only made me want to watch them more. But I have to say recently, like, a lot of the movies that have affected me the most have been kind of more the slow burners. Like people hate this movie, Neon Demon.
Oh, I haven't watched.
It was one of the most worst reviewed movies. It was in 2020, the beginning of 2020, right? It came out, something like that.
Is
that Shudder?
No, they added it to Netflix or one of those streaming
services. It's on
Amazon, Amazon, like immediately.
You go down those, Stratton goes down those horror wormholes too. Like,
yeah, he does.
He had Danny from Malignancy on too, and he's fucking, dude, Amazon Prime, like fucking got the most fucked up shit you'll ever see.
It'll take it on there.
That movie. They hate it because they think it's got a lot of like bad queer representation in it. Like the character, there's like a queer character in there that is. I think the reason people mostly hate that movie is because there's a necrophilia scene in it. And when that happened, I was
Have you seen Citizen Q?
Yeah, this is so death metal. When it was happening, I was like cheering. I was like, do it. Don't turn away. Like, go for it.
Don't turn away.
You watch a horror movie because you want to be repulsed, right? Like, you want to be
exactly.
disgusted.
You want to be scared, repulsed, and
take it over the edge,
right? I get the perspective. It's not the most feminist movie in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but I was reading the reviews on Amazon, and they're horrible. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to watch this again. I just watched it like a couple weeks ago, and the main criticism is it's really boring. I'm mesmerized by that movie. I just put it on, not in an altered state whatsoever. I just like was chewing on every second of that movie. I love it. It's like one of my favorites. Climax another one that I think conventional horror people will hate. It's a French sort of like drug horror movie, basically. It's like a bunch of dancers who all they drink dosed punch and they go nuts for like the rest of the movie. Someone gets set on fire, someone is revealed to be pregnant, and then someone else purposefully beats her up to like make her miscarry. It's a horror movie.
Jesus.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
But it's really compelling. It's like punctuated by all these dance sequences that are like kind of incredible. It starts with a dance sequence, and it's pretty brutal. It's a French movie, so it does not shy away. It's not gory, but it's pretty horrific.
You ever seen Irreversible?
No, but I mean that's definitely on my list.
Oh man,
yeah,
I own it. It's one of those really fucked up movies. Other people
exactly,
are
like you can't look away. I got to see Martyrs. I haven't seen the original Martyrs. I need to see that. I'm familiar with it, but I need to check that out.
Have you checked out Terrifier?
Is that the one with the clown?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that the original?
I thought that
one?
was.
Or is that the one where he cuts the girl in half?
That's the one where he cuts the girl in half that's hanging upside down.
Two of them now, right?
Yeah, there's two of them.
Yeah, there's like All Hallows Eve, I think. Is that the first one? I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I found out about that after I watched Terrifier, and then I found out about All Hallows Eve, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to watch this because that movie, it was great. Like as far as new horror movie goes, that's what I was looking for. Something like that, not something like I Know What You Did Last Summer or some bullshit like that,
Yeah.
Well, that's not exactly new anymore, Bodie.
No, but at the time when I was,
I knew
like,
who
when
you
all that
did
other
last summer. Your wife.
I know what you did. But like those types of bullshit movies.
Yeah, I want to be horrified when I watch a movie. Like I want my comfort zone to be tested when I watch a horror movie. So again, like I cut my teeth on slasher movies. Like those are classics. I'll always love them.
Exactly. Yes.
But I look for the things like revenge. That's another one that I know a lot of people find problematic. And if you're going to attach the word problematic to a horror movie, you need to certainly
check yourself before you mess yourself.
Yeah, there's a line, but you have to realize you're watching a horror movie. So
that is the one genre. So all the other, I'm a vanilla ice cream guy. Like that's my like, you know what I'm saying? Like with my tastes, if something goes too far, if it's too horrific or brutal, I turn off. I don't like it. But
too much vanilla.
Of all the genres, if I see something that I perceive as not entertaining or too shocking or just flat out shit in the horror genre, I don't care. I'll move on. I don't get critical because it's one of the few genres that you could take massive risks. And then there's going to be there's a reason why they keep making them. And it's not just budgeting. It's because these people can get experimental. And same like with the type of music all three of you guys like. There is going to be an audience. Might not be a fucking the same audience as Marvel, but there's going to be an audience for that crazy shit. I don't like 95% of it, but I still watch a ton of horror. So that's
hey, you like Ernie, you probably like some fucking Slayer too, Come on.
Right. That's why they keep making shitty Saw movies.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another one, like the third Saw movie. I kind of ignored those. And then I saw the third one. I was like, this is making me kind of uncomfortable. Like that scene where the guy's limbs are being like rotated around. That one is really splattery in a way that doesn't give a shit about the audience. I like Green Room. That's another movie that does not care.
That's a good movie.
Yeah. Green Room is a good movie.
Yeah.
Don't get attached to maybe from Arrested Development. Spoiler. I was really impressed by that movie and Blue Ruin, which is not a horror movie, but director.
Blue Ribbon, was that Dennis Hopper? Was he in that?
I don't think so.
Am I thinking of something else?
No, isn't it the dude that made Green Room? His first movie was it's Blue something.
They did Murder Party, and then he did Blue Ruin, and then he did Green Room, and then he did another movie after that for Netflix, but it wasn't very good.
Yeah, I skipped through Blue Ruin just for some reason. I don't like that guy's face.
Sure. Yeah,
for some reason, I don't know why. It's not his fault. It's his face. I get that too with a lot of people. They don't like my face either. But
I love your face. You're all about the 80s slashers and shit. I mean, in the 80s to me is 80s and early 90s. I mean, it was just the mecca. I fucking, get a little bit of pre-cum thinking about how much I love those fucking movies. you know, and like as a horror fan, that's what I grew up on, and like really obscure shit, you know, even like the shit that was supposedly real, the taboo shit, the faces and traces of death, you know?
Yeah.
But like for me, I also like, and Sren can attest to this too, because he's a big fan. We're both big, all three of us are big fans of like comedy and horror. So like I remember like as a kid, my favorite, like I think just all time movie is Return to the Living Dead. I'm like fucking psycho nuts over that goddamn movie.
Yeah.
Dude, I just got from shout out to Cavity Colors, who has some great t-shirts. You all should check out and buy. Great. I don't even get paid for that shit, but I'm gonna do it. I have 2 Return of the Living Dead shirts, and I just ordered 2 more. They're on sale. So now I have the first 3, because the first 3 are the only ones worth watching. I don't fuck with Necropolis and Rave to the Grave. All right. Yeah. Let's give you some even deeper cuts on that. Don't check them out. But stuff like that, and Evil Dead 2, you know, Sam Raimi, like even go back to like Sleepaway Camp shit, you know, it's like, what's some of your
show
like
that to people? I used to show that movie to people when I Halloween parties. I would be invited to curate that. And it was all about the last scene, obviously.
Yes, obviously,
of course.
Yeah.
I can't even like make that face like she makes it, or Angela reveals, you know, the truth. It's not really a girl.
Yeah, I just got into Night of the Demons. I missed that.
Yes.
Kid. That one's a lot of fun to watch.
Good movie.
Yeah,
that's the one where she puts like the lipstick through her titty? Remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, what's her name? I just like kind of discovered her too. Like she's in all of these, you know, these horror movies. She's in what is it, Sorority Sisters at the Sleazeball Bolorama or something like that. She's like the tough girl in that, like the heroine in that. What's her name?
I can't think.
We're bad horror fans that we don't know her name.
Oh yeah, they're the worst. You know,
worst.
People are gonna judge us right now based upon our knowledge. That's why we make up for it with yelling and all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah.
Because we don't know.
And more movies.
Yeah. What's like in the 90s era? Because I like a lot of like shit like Reanimator too. Jeffrey Combs and Stuart Gordon combination, dude. They did some really killer shit. From Beyond, a lot of Lovecraft adaptations and shit.
Yes.
And then I think they came back together, or maybe it was. No, maybe with Jeffrey Combs wasn't in it, but there was a series that they did in like, what was it, early mid 2000s, Masters of Horror, I think.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Stuart Gordon one with trying to think what the fuck it was. I think it was like something with a rat or something, but it was another like Lovecraft adaptation. And he just, dude, another guy, R.I.P. that's, you know, left us too soon. He knocked out of the park with everything he did. Like I said, and even Jeffrey Combs and Beyond, like I'm a huge Castle Freak fan. That fucking movie fucking kicks ass, dude.
I need to properly watch that at some point, because again, one of the great one of the things great about the times we live in is all the YouTube horror review channels there are, and that's really cracked open a lot of these movies that I just kind of slept on, and that one gets brought up again and again and again. I definitely got to check that one out.
Oh yeah. What about you in any of the like Italian gore shit?
You know, I mean, I guess everybody watches Argento. Like Phenomenon is one of my favorite ones. That was just such
my favorite
freak factor of that one is really great. But not too deep into it. I mean, what's the one? Cannibal Holocaust? Is that sort of the infamous one with the speared through the butt out the mouth?
Yep.
I remember I got into that like when I was in New York City. There was a really awesome video store. I think it was St. Mark's Video or something like that, where I was getting a lot of these movies that had the animal, like real actual animal mutilation in it. I don't know. I need to tap that vein. I haven't done it yet.
What about the Human Centipede? What'd you think of those? As far as, you know, horror, you're talking about horror and like shit that's just gonna make you like.
Yeah. You know, like everybody, I was intrigued by the concept, saw the first one, and was just like, that's it. So, you know, of course.
I need more. What do you want, you sick fuck?
But then
I want more.
He took that note and he brought it into the second one. The second one was too much. Like the second one is one of those like Eastern European like horror movies that's really oppressive, like a Serbian film or Taxidermia.
Yeah,
it's just,
I was just going to say that.
Depressing. Like
Men Behind the Sun. That was kind of like that too.
It's not enjoyable. It's
Trent's wincing at you said Serbia film. He's like, oh.
Yeah, he was like, oh.
I'm really
Or
offended
even
that they
like,
named it the Serbian film. A Serbian film.
A Serbian film. Or even like
That's right.
what is it, Sallow, 120 Days of Sodom, where it's just like so depressing that it's not scratching that horror, like that cathartic horror itch. It's just like sad as fuck.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch it again.
It's meant to bring you down.
It's meant to break your spirit and realize
That's pretty much it right there.
That's it. I tend to shy away from that end of the spectrum a little bit. I know there's a lot of that really like the human guinea pig stuff. I don't mess with that. I'm not into that. There's some movie that was like a German, oh God, it's like a guy's name. And it's infamous because it's a picture of the guy leaning back and he's just in his underwear and he's got like a little red dot on his dick. I can't remember the name of that movie.
Man, I have to check this out.
It's like a German guy's name. Like the main character's name is the name of the movie too, but it's kind of like necromantic a little bit. It's got that aesthetic to it. Those again, I tend to shy a little bit away from.
What was the last? Go ahead, Bodie.
Oh, I was just gonna say I like you're talking about like horror movies from other countries and stuff. I'm always a huge fan of like the Japanese horror, like Tokyo Gore Police, Audition, and then you got
dude, it's really
Audition, man.
I mean, I can't watch that. If you guys have Shudder at all, Eli Roth has a really awesome show that they put on there, The History of Horror.
Oh yeah,
super fucking cool, and they talk about like different subjects and subgenres of horror, and the one episode's focused on body horror, so it's like mutilation and fucking like the thing, as we talked about before, and like when she's like cutting his ankles off with that fucking
his
wire.
ankles. Dude, like the guy wire too. I'm like, Jesus, man. Shit like that. Rigor Mortis too. Rigor Mortis is one of my favorites, dude. I love that movie.
Bodie, have you seen Citizen Q?
Citizen Q, I've seen some of it. Yes, I have not watched the whole thing through. I really want to.
It's like banging that corpse girl, and it's like, oh, you're dead, but you're wet. I can feel it. And then he like looks, and it's like, oh, you shit on me. It's like, you feel me, man. You shit on me. Like,
dude, that movie's brutal.
The next scene is like some girl in the fucking kitchen, like, I don't know, she's pregnant or whatever. She's like squeezing her titty milk out, and there's just a guy like under an umbrella like filming it, like like what is going on? What is this?
See, I do like a bit of story, like just a little bit. Like Mandy didn't really have much of a story, but I was super into that. Even however derivative it was. Like,
did you see Color Out of Space?
Yeah.
I really want to see that.
Yeah, it was pretty good, but Mandy was another one of those movies that just kind of grabbed me, and I just watched it over and over and over again.
Me too.
What's the best horror movie you've seen lately? Like the most unique thing in your opinion that you've seen that's kind of within the past decade or so? We'll go the 2000s.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like in terms of unique. I get more into experience. Like I like these movies, and I think Neon Demon is one of those movies that if you're like dialed into the experience, you'll really enjoy it. There's like something going on in that most people miss. It could be the edibles that I ate when I first watched it, or what?
You scoundrel.
But I definitely I like to mine things for subtext, and that one feels like it's got something. There's something unique and something kind of different about it. That's not about just like LA, like critiquing models and LA and all that shit. I don't know. I feel like I kind of blew my wad on that question, talking about like the couple that we mentioned.
It's a tough question because like as much shit as I watch, like it's the same thing. If I would ask myself that, I would have been like, the fuck did you just say that for? You don't know, you can't give a legit answer. And then 2 days after we're done, it's like, oh, I remember that movie I was going to talk about.
Yeah. No, I mean, just in terms of like really unique, that trio for me is Mandy and Climax and Neon Demon.
Okay.
They're not hard gore, but they touch like really uncomfortable spots in me. Frontiers is another one that I really enjoyed, which is sort of like a French Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That one made me really uncomfortable because it's bleak, but there's enough of a story in that. It's literally French Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like a group of like Antifa kind of protesters flee Paris because this fascist government is coming in and they think they're going to be safe in the woods. No, they shack up in a cannibal Nazi French farm.
Worst combination ever.
Yeah. And it's like a lot of those French films, there's like a sexuality to it too that is really uncomfortable. I am a fan of like the sex and the violence kind of together. There is a line for me, like there is for everybody, but that one I think that was from like 2007. I was kind of shocked by some of the brutality in that one. Bleak, but the story kind of kept me in it.
Hell yeah. I want to know too, real quick, as an artist, artistically, who influenced you, especially now getting into like the comic form and all that shit?
Yeah, my biggest influence, even though you might not know, seeing what I do, was Marvel Comics, like Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri, all those guys that went off to go do Image. Yeah. Todd McFarlane, Eric Larson, who did Savage Dragon.
Yes.
He's local to my local comic shop. So
really
you could show up at a certain time of the week and he would be there. And I, definitely cornered him. And like you were saying, I tried to get him to do a pinup for me and he was not having it. But he was nice enough. So those guys really influenced me. But when I started to kind of look at what I wanted to do when I was starting to make my own, the Hernandez brothers who do Love and Rockets, definitely having like these huge cast of characters. They had music in what they did. They had wrestling in a lot of what they did. A lot of sort of subplots. I was a big fan of Scott Pilgrim when it came out. At first, people tagged me as like the gay Scott Pilgrim, and I was like, well, Scott Pilgrim's already pretty gay. I mean, they have the roommate, and all of that. And I think one of the characters, like there's a lesbian character or whatever. So I was really influenced by that too. But as I got more into meeting actual comic creators, and I think this is true of musicians too, everybody's so friendly. That I started to get influenced by those people that were around me. So like certainly Tom Neely. I'm a good teacher. Like I said, I have all my examples right here. Benjamin Mara, if you're familiar with him, definitely check him out. He's really awesome. Johnny Ryan, like I loved the Prison Pit series. This is some of the best like gay erotic comics out there, and they're totally not meant to be. I'm trying to think of who else. Jim Rugg does Street Angel. It's a homeless sort of female teen ninja character who just is running around fighting all these supervillains. And Alexis Zaret is another person I'd recommend checking out. Everything he does is like this grimy kind of exploitation, Technicolor looking stuff. They really influenced me. Definitely, as I started to do more color work, I got into all of their aesthetics, and they're all influenced by the same people. That
right.
Too. So it's this nice feedback loop.
You ever met McFarlane or Jim Lee or any of those guys?
Yes. If you go through my Instagram, about a year ago, I was in an art exhibition with Todd McFarlane, and we were also on a panel together, and there's pictures of me. He was the keynote speaker. So we weren't allowed to talk when he was talking. Like we did our panel, and then he came on and it was like a TED talk. And there's pictures of me in the background, like throwing shade and like pulling faces and stuff. But then we went to the exhibition where all of our work is up in the same gallery. And he came up and talked to me. And there's this picture of him with his hand on my shoulder, like just passionately speaking to me. And I felt so shitty about all those faces that I made. He's a pro. He's every bit the pro that you would expect him to be.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah. He talked to everybody in the room and not just like random chit chat. He was like, all these hairs. This is amazing. Like, I bet this is where you go into your zone, because he does all the webbing and stuff.
The webbing, exactly. He's so detailed, dude. He was the guy that got me into like doing detail in my characters, especially with Spider-Man. I loved his Venom, dude. His Venom's the best.
Yeah, it was so awesome.
Yeah. And when you're talking to somebody like that, you got to level up. You got to kind of somehow get on that level with him. So I
Right.
threw out that I had been chatting with Eric Larson because he's at my local comic shop, and that, his eyes lit up, and we talked for that much longer because of it. No, he was a great guy. Like I said, he worked the entire room. He worked every inch of the room and talked to everybody that had work up on the wall. And I would not have expected him to do that. So yeah,
Right.
I won't ever say anything bad about Todd McFarlane again.
Me neither, dude. That's fucking awesome. I could see that. I've never met the man, but I could just tell. I usually get a pretty good feel on people, pretty good read on him. And dude, he always comes across as super professional, like just knows what he wants and what he's got to get done. And like you said, to acknowledge everybody that was there, dude, that's something you don't get with a lot of these, quote unquote top guys.
Yeah. Well, he also too, during his talk, he was like, don't let anybody beat what's unique about you out of what you do, whether it's music or drawing or whatever. He told some story about how Marvel was like, don't draw Spider-Man like that. He changed Spider-Man like utterly for, moving forward after he drew him. So I really took that to heart. When I heard that, I was like, no, you got to hold on to the thing that makes you unique. Don't like compromise yourself so much that you edit the grit out, or you edit the freak factor out of what you do. Hold on to all of that and use it to stand out. I mean, that's what I'm telling my students all the time. Like, don't compromise yourself so much reaching for something that you think everybody wants. Like, own what makes you weird.
Yeah. And he did just that. I mean, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. I mean, the way he, like you said, don't draw Spider-Man this way, or, any character. There were a lot of characters like that back in the day when he's went Marvel, like, Todd, hey, you can't do that. We don't want. He's like, why? I want like this picture or this panel or this setup, this page. I want it to jump out at you. I don't want it to just be a stale, reading each fucking box. And it's just, old school Marvel. Like,
yeah,
he changed, like you said, Spider-Man, dude. Favorite Spider. I remember when Toy Biz back in the day came out with the first Spider-Man figure that had like 20 joint articulation. And I always called it the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man figure, dude, because dude, he had Spidey in so many different crazy fucking poses in that webbing, dude. The webbing was the best.
Yeah, I say what you will about Liefeld too. He's not my favorite, but he had such an impact on, especially all the artists that I was just mentioning, especially Benjamin Mara. Like, he just ran with that for better or worse, and he's incredibly famous for it. So yeah, I just feel like I meet a lot of people who are really eager to hone themselves down and make themselves packageable and saleable, and that works for a lot of people. But you can always see when the soul isn't kind of in that work. And I look for work that has that, whether it's music, film, comics, whatever. You can tell when someone's really passionate about what they're doing because it stands out. It's weird.
Yes.
It's weird as fuck. Yeah.
That's very true. Going forward, where do you see yourself? What are your ambitions and dreams going forward and goals? With Wuvable Oaf, with anything that you're doing, obviously, you have you said you've been with Decibel Magazine now doing artwork for them for like 6 years. Where do you see yourself? Where do you want yourself to be seen in the next several years? Where does Ed Luce find himself?
Yeah, I've been working on the follow-up. I did 2 books for Fantagraphics, and those were largely material that had been around for years that they just kind of collected and then packaged and put out into the world. So I'm working on the follow-up to that, which is pretty much exclusively a wrestling book. It's kind of going back to the 90s and following the Goat Blood character and his kind of, it was going to be called The Rise of Goat Blood. So it's him in his like very classically late 90s, like kind of attitude era style wrestling company. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. But I started to look into that a little bit. I'm not a huge memoir comic fan. I mean, certainly I work with a lot of students who are coming from that place. I don't think my life is that interesting, but I'm starting to work a little bit of a memoir aspect that is kind of covering a lot of what we've been talking about, like my investment in wrestling as a kid, especially how I was drawn to it as a young gay kid. So there's going to be a little bit of that in it as well. I every time I do a talk like this, I always say, I'd like to try and make animation happen. And that's because I had an animation deal, and as things happen with these. Like very few of them actually pan out. So I've been talking about it a little bit more because I'm trying to draw that energy back towards what I do, towards adapting the Oaf comic into a cartoon. Because I was shocked that anybody wanted to do it. I won't name names, but the company and the people that wanted to do it were exactly the people that I wanted to do it. And it just kind of fell flat on its face. The studio that was developing it got closed by its parent company. The rights lapsed. So anytime I do like a public talk these days, I'm like, the rights are up. If anybody's watching this, like they're up for grabs, because I would like to try and make that happen. And as you said, like you recognize it's kind of like the nexus for all these things that I think, might make an interesting and unique cartoon that hasn't been made before. So definitely want to see that happen. But otherwise, I'm just committed to keep, doing fan art. I'm going to release that book. I'm meeting a lot of interesting people doing the fan art. I didn't do it for years, and I've been really hitting Instagram with it pretty hard lately. So just kind of hanging back there and letting people that I know that I'm back in the game again after kind of being quiet during the pandemic.
Fuck yeah, you can't be quiet any longer. And speaking of not being quiet, you have merch out. People can get that at wuvableoaf.com. But where else can everybody find you on social media and whatnot?
Yeah, you can find Wuvable Oaf pretty much on any of the major platforms. Twitter, I hate Twitter. So I mean, I parked myself on there.
I don't like social media. Well, it don't like you, Stretton.
That one I definitely don't like, but I love, Instagram's my most sort of populated platform.
Yeah. There's a good community for what you do on like Instagram. That's what Instagram to me is built for. You're a fucking artist.
I can't stand, logging in to Twitter and just seeing the
toxic
the hashtags for that, what's trending. It's like I can't get past it, especially over the last year, I can't get past it. So I purposefully have let that one kind of dwindle. But yeah, you can find me on there. Any of the Oaf books you can get on Amazon. Fantagraphics has been really awesome at extending my reach. But yeah, as you say, I have wuvableoaf.com. That's where you can kind of get my single issues and things like that, my t-shirts. I'm going to be releasing a record. A couple of years back, I did a split with Harasser, who was actually on the Green Room soundtrack, along with Midnight, and I'm trying to remember who else, and also Author and Punisher. So it was Harasser and Author and Punisher split. Yeah, I went to
Author
the
Punisher
same
rules.
Yeah, I went to the same grad school as Tristan at UC San Diego. So not at the same time, but I had that little connection. And I grabbed him right before he went on to what was it? Phil Anselmo's was it horrorcore?
Housecore.
Housecore.
Yeah, Housecore.
In fact, I think the song he did for me is on the Housecore first release record called Fear. So I found a bunch of the misprinted color. They got the color wrong, the vinyl company. So I'm going to be releasing a limited number of those 7 inches with new art, Harasser on one side, Author and Punisher on the other. Kind of a weird pairing, but I had to go for it because those are the only 2 fans that I knew that I could get to do that. But yeah, just if you type Wuvable Oaf, you'll be shocked because it's a weird word. a sort of weird to say, weird to spell word. You can find all my stuff on Google really easy.
Fuck yeah. And you best do that. You best buy some I know he's got t-shirts. He's got some fucking awesome prints. Like I said, you got books. I myself am going to be getting on here probably right after we get done here and getting those. You got those Henry and Glenn getting married by Papa Emeritus from Ghost. Like those are.
I forgot about that. I was super into Ghost for better or worse for a long time too.
Dude, I've seen them twice. I dig them. I dig them. I wasn't so super hip on the very last album, but dude, the theatricality, it's like almost reminds me of like Alice Cooper mixed with Blue Oyster Cult, like mixed with, I don't know. I mean, you could throw a million other fucking bands in there, like King Diamond or some shit, Well,
that's why I got into Midnight. I was really into the fact that all wore these like Halloween store hoods, basically. I'm a sucker for all that stuff.
Hell yeah. It's a good band to be into, brother. Well, man, dude, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Ed, and sharing your story with us. And at any time, the door is always open. So, if you're down, we'd love to have you back, and maybe we'll cross over into the Juice Pro Wrestling era and get in there, and you can talk some fucking wrestling for over an hour with us. Because why? Because it's fucking fun. It's what we like to do.
Of course.
Yeah, this is great. I had a blast. Thank you guys for this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
man.
It's a pleasure.
Anytime. You're welcome back. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe button, ring the notification bell on YouTube. If you're listening on any podcasting platform, make sure that you rate and review us. You can tell us we fucking suck. I don't care. As long as you say something, because guess what? Controversy creates, I would say cash, but we don't make money off this. We some broke motherfuckers. Just give us some attention. Feed us more. Until next time, this is The Juice for Bruiser Bodie and Shredding the motherfucking Savage. That's right. He's the best producer in all the land. That's right. Wet 'em up.
Everywhere.
Wet 'em up. Wet 'em up. Wait, you do that on the other show. Oh, shit. You're right. What should I do? We'll see you motherfuckers next time. If you like that video, then please hit subscribe and share with all of your friends, and continue to support the JPDUB podcast. We're all over the place on all podcasting platforms for your stimulation.